Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We want to welcome you to the webinar. And today we're taking a deep dive into the world of document management, sharing the strategies you need to help obtain a 360-degree view of all relevant documents in your organization. If you're tired of wasting time searching for your documents across multiple platforms, this is the session for you. Disconnected information and fragmented workflows can lead to challenges in your day-to-day work. That's why an integration such as Salesforce and SharePoint is essential to streamline your processes, paving the way for enhanced efficiency and productivity. Okay, we're really excited to be here with everyone today. I'm Lauren Metcalf, Content and Services Delivery Lead at Salesforce Ben, and I will be your host for this event. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Garth McCann, who is here with us today to talk about how having a comprehensive view of all your documents is critical for success. Garth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Lauren. Also happy to be here. I'm a partner manager in the international team here at d.velop. I work with partners in various countries and domains, if you so will, in the Salesforce context and in the broader document management sphere. And I'll be taking you through some of our ideas today.
Now, thank you so much for that. Before we get started, we just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping rules. As this is a webinar, all lines are muted, but don't worry, we'll be having a Q&A session at the end for you to ask all of your burning questions to Garth. Feel free to submit them in the comments throughout the webinar, and we'll get to as many as possible. The session is also recorded and will be sent directly to you after we've finished, along with the slide deck that we use throughout this as well. Thank you. Yeah, I'll hand it over to Garth, and we're excited for this. He'll take you through the strategies you need for smarter documentation. Enjoy.
Good. Thank you very much, Lauren. All right, so let's have a look at what we wanted to address today, and that is the challenge that so many organizations are facing around dealing with information that is spread out across the organization and basically locked into various information silos. And this is something that I think a lot of organizations address on and on again over time, and yet we're still faced with this situation very often when we speak with new clients. And the amount of time and the costs incurred with those silos are really extraordinary. I think this is a succinct way of putting it, that these silos really create barriers between the departments, between individuals within the organization, and at the end of the day, they simply hinder the way you communicate and collaborate. And so that the collaboration that you see down at the bottom there with some of my co-employees doesn't really always come to fruition. Instead, you end up with people being quite frustrated, and the reasons for that frustration can be manifold. I always like these statistics here that really point out things that I see myself. And I think many of you probably do, the amount of time we spend forging through emails trying to find the information that we need in the right context. I think another one we see here is the amount of time that people have and need to refocus after they have a distraction. And that distraction is very often one associated with looking for the information that you need in order to solve a problem or to interact with a client or with a vendor or whatever your project. And every time you get out of your focus zone to go and gather that information, it's time lost, multiplied up. That's quite a loss for any organization. Another one that's also valid for people using Salesforce, very often sales personnel as well as I am. One thing I certainly don't like doing is going into any kind of situation, negotiation, etc., with a client and not having all of the information that I need. And again, that can be quite a challenge in large organizations with information distributed all over the place. And some studies have also taken a look into the cost effect of this in terms of the duplicated efforts that people have for people storing the same documents twice, looking for them in different places, and that time wasted can also be put down into pounds and pence, if you so will. And on top of that, there are also compliance issues about knowing what is the actual valid version of the document that we need to be looking after, and are we meeting all of the requirements for how we're taking care of that content. This one I rather love. It's a bit playful, but the gentleman's face in the middle really reflects, I think, the situation that a lot of users have when they're basically surrounded by a host of applications that we use in our organizations to structure the way we work. But each of those seems to think that content is something that they should be king of. And so you have information that is valid, that is locked away in Salesforce. You have information that may be in any ERP applications that you use. These are just placeholders, but it could be SAP or a Dynamics product or other line of business applications that contain important information that is very often being generated in document form, but may be being stored within their own systems. Some information may be being stored in SharePoint, which is one of the topics of our discussion today. But what we're also discovering is that a lot of organizations who are putting SharePoint in place as a means of dealing with this situation here, this swivel chair syndrome, are actually just turning that SharePoint into a glorified file share, which is, again, where some people are as well, not even having the search capability of SharePoint, but still on a classic file server or dealing with paper binders of information to get everything that they need in place. And so, getting away from this, having to look into all sorts of different silos for your information is where we want to be. And we think that there are some clever ways of doing that. Hence, I think the title today is Smarter Document Management. It's not just storing documents in the context of the various systems, creating them, it's creating one central source of truth for the organization. So the gentleman in the swivel chair just needs to look in one spot. And what we've taken into focus today is putting SharePoint into the middle of that, but adding some tools that would help an organization to make sure that all of that information is available in one spot and easily through other applications. So our focus today will be on how Salesforce interacts with that central source of truth, but it becomes the place where all of your documents can be coming in from Office applications and very importantly from other ERP solutions as well, so that the user using a system like this knows where to go to find that information, but can also arrive at it. And there's no arrow showing this here, but arrive at that through Salesforce or through their ERP solution. But it's all pointing back to one place. And in that one central source of truth, then you can very easily handle all of the different use cases that you have in an organization. So your salespeople who are working with Salesforce, for instance, won't just have access to structures of documents dealing with sales cases. They would also have information coming into that from their manufacturing applications, from various projects, et cetera, but all easily accessible through something that's tried and tested for them, that they're familiar with, but isn't its own data silo. It's all pointing back at a central solution. And that's the kind of thing that you really need to have for an organization to get away from just one silo after another over the years, one replacing the next. One way we do that as d.velop is to use a connector that connects a document management system to the leading application, in this case, Salesforce. And we think it's important that the users have a good experience doing that. So one of the key elements there is to make sure that we have a native integration into what is a very familiar Salesforce layout. We'll see that in a minute in the live system. And we want to bring full DMS functionality to Salesforce. So you're pointing through to that single source of truth and leveraging all of the structured search capabilities of proper document management, leveraging workflow capability, which can be used across the organization based on the DMS. So crossing the various solutions from CRM to ERP, et cetera. And then within the context of Salesforce itself, we also want those users to be able to use document management combined with some of the functionality that they're very familiar with and enjoy using, whether it's Chatterbox or whether it's using flows that you've defined within the Salesforce context. Even in fact, being able to integrate DMS functionality into Salesforce apps via Apex. These are things that are all welcome additions to people implementing Salesforce and wanting to know how can I manage documents, but do it in a way that's well integrated in Salesforce, but at the same time is able to be used by the rest of the organization. So this is a slide you can take away with you. I'll just put it in here on purpose, just so that you know that we're not new to this game. I think that's important for anybody to know. Are we an ISV partner? Yes, we are. We've been one for quite some time, as you can see here. Since 2017, we have a dedicated team of people, building tools around Salesforce, and I think that's important. Again, when you're looking for a solution, and at the end of the day, it's also a good message to say we use Salesforce ourselves, both for sales and for service desk, with this kind of integration, and it works wonders. So I won't go into this too deeply because we'll see some of this in the presentation, but you'll get this afterwards. It just illustrates that there are different interesting cases where in the context of Salesforce, you can use this kind of integration with documents to address specific things, like bringing all of your orders, your order confirmations, and these kind of documents all into the context of an account, for instance, and making sure that you have all of your contract-related documents in place and linked with Salesforce. And being sure that all of the documents around service cases can be easily managed and then stored in a DMS solution rather than in Salesforce as attachments. So you're freeing up some space. It's a little additional byproduct, if you so will, of having a centralized DMS, that you don't have to do that in each of the applications, Salesforce included. So I've mentioned a couple of times in the preceding slides that the ERP, DMS, CRM conundrum is a difficult one for organizations, because so many of these documents that you're creating in these solutions are valid for people who may or may not be users within, for instance, SAP. They may only be in Salesforce and vice versa. And you may have some users who aren't using either of those solutions, they're using something else. So you need some solution that can be your central source of truth, but brings to the game all of the connectors that you need to very effortlessly bring documents and information across from these different solutions into one place. And for the first time, in many cases, users are now able to just go to one spot and get everything from all of these diverse applications. One brief mention of what we're going to show you in the live part is that is from our own perspective, how we address these issues, is that we have a d.velop cloud platform on which our solutions are based, in which we have integration components to various solutions. As you can see here, we have a primary document management system in the case of what we're doing today, based on Microsoft 365's platform with SharePoint Online. And then connected into Salesforce. Should any of you not be choosing SharePoint as your central source of document management, rest assured that we also have a d.velop Documents Cloud solution that also uses the exact same interface. So if SharePoint is not part of your central strategy, there are still ways of doing this kind of smart document management with an easily integrated solution that looks essentially exactly the same as what we're doing today in terms of the Salesforce integration. So enough slides. Let's pop over. You'll get this. I didn't mean to go that far. Let's just go into the live bit. And I'm going to start off with just a brief glimpse into the SharePoint backend system that we're using. So basically, based on Microsoft's SharePoint, we have a structure that lets us search and find for information. And if I find information, for instance, about a client that I might be entering here, for instance, and say, okay, here's my client. That client is Bravo Automation. If I access that customer, I'll find something that, or can find something that looks like this. You have an example here of a customer structure and folder where we've defined different types of documents that are all being stored here, that are coming in from different systems. I have information about that organization, and over on the right-hand side, I can see different kinds of documents corresponding to that client. So I can see here that I have various documents that are stored, whether they're PDFs, Word, etc. And they can be coming in from emails, from integrated Office applications. They can be PDFs coming in from external sources, so printouts coming from other applications or coming out of Salesforce itself. So talking about Salesforce, let's now take a step over here. So this would be a way of accessing all of these documents and information from outside of Salesforce. If you're in Salesforce, The interesting thing about doing something like this is that we can tie that into any object in Salesforce, whether it's an account, whether it's an opportunity. Here I've started off with that same account that we were just looking at in the central DMS solution, and I'm seeing the documents related to Bravo automation here in the native Salesforce application. So again, that makes it really slick and easy to use. If I want to then view a particular document, I can access that document using the same user interface that we just saw in the SharePoint perspective. And in doing so, I can use all of the standardized DMS functionality that's available here, right? So whether that's starting workflows that are running across the organization rather than, for instance, workflows that are in the ERP or in Salesforce, that's another valid use case, but you may have some flows that need to go outside of that, and that can be done here and easily accessed from Salesforce. You can do things like signing documents digitally, processing these, creating new versions, etc., all from this user interface that's the same for the user, whether they're coming from Salesforce or directly into the application. However, of course, as Salesforce users yourselves, you're aware that there's plenty of functionality available in Salesforce that you may want to be leveraging. So not only do you want to just see documents here, you may want to be quickly sorting and filtering these documents. What's interesting for you to know is that what you're seeing here are not documents stored in SharePoint per se. These are all documents that are in the external document management system, or simply are being surfaced as information here. And at the same time, you can then use functionality in SharePoint to say, okay, I want to start a chatter post with a colleague based around this document. I want to send this email to somebody using a template out of SharePoint and have that as an out of Salesforce, excuse me, and have that as an attachment in the document. All of these documents can also be built into internal flows in Salesforce as well, because Salesforce sees them as native documents in its own application. So briefly mentioning, or showing how we do that in the account perspective, of course, all of the different sales, cloud variation, sales service, etc., and all of the Salesforce objects can be used by our application. So again, I could go and have a look at an opportunity, and in that opportunity, again, we can add in the same tab that we were just looking at here for develop documents, and that would let me see all of the documents that are then relevant to that particular opportunity. Right? And again, coming at it from the outside world, if I were not in Salesforce, I can see that same opportunity here as well. So again, you're bridging those gaps across the organization so that people are seeing the same thing. Not quite sure why I'm getting a bit of line problem here, but that's okay, there it is. And there's my sales quotation in the document. Unfortunate. Not sure why that's happening, but rest assured it is exactly the same as the call up out of accounts that we just saw a moment ago. One thing I'd also like to give you along the way is that you have people using Salesforce in this context, in the classic account opportunity syndrome, but you may also be using Salesforce as a digital experience cloud. So you're allowing people outside of your organization to access information. You want to be interacting with them, and sharing documents with those people, allowing them access to documents may be something that is greatly beneficial for your organization. So here you can see I've also logged in via that external access, and if I come in that way and also access the Bravo automation account, we can make a list of documents available based on rights and et cetera, what you want to make available to those people, and they're seeing exactly, in this case, exactly the same documents, and they can simply view those in a standardized viewer, or you can provide a solution where they have more DMS capability as externals. Very often that's not necessarily required. But so this is both in viewing documents and in storing documents, a very easy way of interacting with people within and without the organization. So you'll have seen here that there's a means of uploading or dropping files for an external user. If you allow them to do that, that is essentially exactly the same as what an internal person would do as well. So if I just show you quickly how that works, in our slide before we were talking about having documents not just easily accessible, but also the user wanting to know, where do I store this, so that it's in a standardized structure and everybody's able to find it again. On my other screen, I have a simple Windows Explorer open with a document in it. I'm just going to pull that over here as a drag and drop, let that fall into this area here in Salesforce. And then it will ask me, what is this document? I'm going to say that's a request for proposal, and I can just upload it from now. But so that you see what's going on, I'm going to open these fields, and the nice thing here is that it simply inherits all of the relevant information from Salesforce to store that document. So it's always going to be in the context of the account and the opportunity associated with it, and it can be found that way both within Salesforce and for people accessing it from outside of Salesforce. So it's as simple as that for dragging and dropping information. And if you're creating documents within Salesforce, like quotes, etc., then you'll have in our tool set, basically a means of automatically taking those documents and pushing them into the document management system. That's a quick overview, and as I said, that's now uploaded and available for everyone in the system. Let me just take a quick look over here into the, where did it go? There, into the external system here, and as I mentioned, upload there is available. I thought we'd have a view on the same thing. I don't have the opportunity to, but it's the same idea. Okay. Our idea today was to give you that brief overview. I'd like to leave a little bit of time to come back to questions that you may be asking. I think the most important takeaway from this is that we're happy to go in and show you in much greater detail how this kind of thing can be achieved. The one thing is having the user interfaces in place and the connectors in place, no matter what solution you're looking for. I think those are things you definitely need to have truly smart document management in place. If you don't have the ability to create these kind of dynamic structures that suit the storage needs of your organization, and then map out to all of the different systems that you use, and can also be surfaced in those systems so that people have the same experience. In our case, it's always using a dashboard like this, but also leveraging native capabilities of some of the applications like Salesforce to give a good user experience. But at the end of the day, it's about planning out your document management system with appropriate tools like this so that you can ensure that the gentleman on the swivel chair isn't still turning 6 months from now, but he actually knows where to find the information that's required. So that in a nutshell is what we wanted to talk to you about today. If you have any specific questions about that, I'd be happy to entertain those questions, and or you can follow up with us afterwards, and we'd be happy to do a deeper dive presentation of the solution. I could check with my colleagues and see if any questions have come in on the system.
Yeah, no, that was really insightful presentation. I'm sure that everyone attending now has a better idea of how vital document management is to an organization. So we'll jump into the questions, as you said, and yeah, as we're running through them, please keep them coming, add them into the chat, and we'll get to as many as possible. So the first one here is, can you automatically upload files that reach the Salesforce system via email to case or the digital experience cloud?
Yes, you can. So basically, we have a set of APIs with this solution that are in Salesforce. So we can basically take a flow in the case of email to case and push the documents that are coming in via that mechanism straight into the document management solution. If you're also storing documents as attachments and you still want to keep those as attachments in Salesforce, that's fine. You can do that, but we'll basically take a copy and push that directly into the central source of truth, if you so will.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. Next one, what best practices would you recommend for maintaining efficient document management workflows between Salesforce and SharePoint?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. the best practice basically needs to be that you need to look at your processes from the beginning in terms of where do you think what parts of your organization are going to be touched by those flows. I sometimes see organizations starting off, for instance, with a flow within Salesforce, and then discovering much later that they also need people outside of Salesforce to be using that process. So I think you need to very much place that holistic view at the beginning of your process design rather than targeting the immediate pain without putting that in the larger context. Because certainly within Salesforce, there are excellent use cases for using flow processes, and that's why we enable those. That's why we deliver a set of calls and functions so that you can you can access documents and dossiers of documents straight out of those flow processes. That's great. But if you have cases that are relevant to your SAP users, then you don't want to be building it in SAP business workflow, and you don't want to be building it in Salesforce. So that's where your central business process management, often coupled with a DMS, is going to help you fix that.
And then there's another one that's just come in. Are the documents stored on SharePoint and linked to records on Salesforce individually?
Yes, all of your in the case of this particular solution, yes, all of the documents are stored in your Salesforce and SharePoint. It's horrible, much too similar in your SharePoint tenant. So we use the tenant of the client to store all of their documents and metadata, and then that's linked to Salesforce. So that view that we were looking at before here in the Lightning UI of Salesforce is basically just a view straight through into the SharePoint repository.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll do a couple more here. Is there a limit on how many objects you can add your component into?
No, there's not. That's sky's the limit as you need it in that context.
That's great, yeah. And are you able to upload files in the notes and attachments section after activating your integration?
Yeah, that's what I think I slightly touched on that, but it maybe not as clear, because I was talking about email to case before, but there are other simple use cases of people wanting to drag and drop documents into Salesforce, put those into the notes section, and have them available there. And what we can do is we have a component in the backend that will just pick those up and push them into the DMS by predefined rules. But you can also then remove them from the notes section or leave them there. So that's very much case dependent, something that needs to be discussed with the client.
Perfect. And then well, maybe just a couple more, but I think this one is quite interesting for sure. How does the Salesforce and SharePoint integration impact data security, and what measures are in place to ensure the safety of sensitive documents?
So in the case of SharePoint, basically, we're using the Microsoft Power Platform, Microsoft 365 platform to realize everything around retention and data security. Right, so we basically bring a tool into play to manage and structure all of these documents, to bring in the connectivity to external systems, but the documents themselves are stored in native Microsoft SharePoint. So at that point, you can use retention rules and all of the security that's available on that powerful Microsoft platform to handle all of those requirements, whether it's, as I said, retention time, using Microsoft Purview. There are many tools in place to do that. If you're not using SharePoint, you're using another document management system, obviously you want to ensure that you have a strong toolbox there to handle all of that. That's something that we do with our d.velop cloud or our on-premises DMS solutions as well.
That's great, thank you. And one last question, is d.velop Connect for Salesforce compatible with document generating third-party applications?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So there are basically a number of solutions in play that we see in different customer projects and that we've connected to. So we'll have basically quotes being generated, as an example, quotes being generated out of Salesforce, and they may be running through different solutions to make them fancy and do all the forms editing, etc. And so we've done those connections so we can ingest that output into the document management system.
Fab. Well, thank you so much for that, Garth.
Yeah.
As we said before, if there's any more questions, you can reach out to the d.velop team personally. You can reach out to them, and they'll be happy to answer them for you. but that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for everyone that attended. We hope that you've gained valuable insights into the document management process and how to establish a centralized workspace for your organization. I'd like to extend a big thanks to Garth for having us today, sharing his expertise and insights. Before we round up, is there any final words that you have, Garth?
Not that much. I think we've said a lot. As I said, I think it's it's a big challenge for any organization. It's one that we've been accompanying for a long time, and as I said, we're happy to talk to people about that and see where exactly they are in this journey. It can be anywhere from we're coming from the chaos of paper documents in in folders and just starting to implement Salesforce to we're well down the road and we've been using Salesforce for a long time and we want to know how to interconnect that with all of our different silos and then get away from those different storage traps, if you so will. So yeah, that's
Great.
these are surmountable challenges, and we can, I think, help out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you as well.